Okay guys, I think you're going to be much happier with this sound quality. I borrowed Mr. Raymond's microphone, so hopefully we'll be in good shape here. Today, solve quadratics by factoring. There's your word that changed. And hopefully that looks familiar. Remember how I told you it was going to come back and haunt you for chapters to come? Here we are. Okay? Here's the big thing you need to know about this. This is called the zero product property. Now, think about this for a minute. So if I have two things multiplied together, so it doesn't matter what they are. If I have a whole bunch of numbers, I have 5, I have 2,000, I have negative 0.012, a whole bunch of stuff multiplied together. The only possible way that they're going to equal 0 is if what happens? That's if one of these things over here equals 0. The only way to equal 0 is if somewhere along here I multiply by something that equals 0. Right? So if I multiply A times B times C times D, the only possible way that it's going to equal 0 is if what? Is if either A is 0, or B is 0, or C is 0, or D is 0. That's the only way. Otherwise, it's going to come out to something. It's going to be a decimal, a number. It's going to be something. That is what we're going to use to solve by factoring. Okay? So, hopefully this looks sort of familiar. This is the way things ended up looking on your last test. Now, on the last slide, we just said, if I want A times B to equal 0, the only way that's possible is if either A is 0 or if B is 0. So, that's what we got going on here. The only way this is going to equal 0 is either this chunk, it's a little bit bigger chunk, but that could be our A, is if either that equals 0 or this equals 0. It's the only way this whole thing is going to turn into 0. Now, do these two things look like something that you can solve? I hope so. If we plus 7 here and I plus 7 here, I got x equals 7. Or if I minus 2 and minus 2, I have x equals negative 2. Those are my two answers. Now, how would I check my answers? How do we always check our answers? We plug it in. So if I were to plug that in right here, 7 minus 7 is 0. 0 times anything is going to be 0. Plug in negative 2. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. 0 times anything is going to equal 0. So that gives me my two answers right here. Okay? So, how do we get there? That's the question. How do we get to this point? Oh, never mind. We're not that far yet. Let's just try these. So I've got this case here. So try these quick. Pause it and try them, or watch one and then pause it and try them. But the only way this is going to equal 0 is if either this equals 0, so either x minus 2 equals 0, or x has to equal 0. So if I solve this and I plus 2 and I plus 2, x either has to be 2 or it has to be 0. And you can plug it in and check. So right here, either x has to equal 0 or x plus 4 has to equal 0, which means x equals negative 4. And you're probably noticing that, that's obviously the negative 4 is just the opposite of what's in there, but it's because we're minusing it to the other side. So either x plus 4 has to equal 0 or x minus 3 has to equal 0, which if I minus that, x either has to equal negative 4 or x has to equal 3. Okay, so now my question is, how do we get there? So we got to get to that point somehow. So this is what they're going to give us, because it's solving quadratics, right? So step number 1, if you want to make a step number 1, if you like to write down steps, the step number 1 is make it equal 0. Step number 2 is factor it. And step number 3 is do what we just did. Set each chunk equal to 0 and solve. So how do we factor it? Hopefully this looks familiar and you have it readily available, because I told you to keep it someplace that you could easily get it back. We are going to use this over and over and over. So hopefully, if the last chapter went well, this should just be a quick lesson. Okay? So have this available. So first thing we're going to do is we're always going to get it equal to 0. So I'll do a couple, and then at any point you pause it and you try it on your own. So I'm going to minus the 21, minus the 21. So I have x squared plus 4x minus 21 equals 0. Now how many terms does that have? It has 3 terms. Is there anything in front of the x squared here? And there is not. And so remember, if there's nothing in front of the x squared, I get to go the really easy way. I get to go what multiplies to negative 21 and adds up to 4, which would be 7 minus 3. So if I factor that, that gives me x plus 7, x minus 3 equals 0. And now I do what I just did on the last slide. If I put x plus 7 equal to 0, that means x equals negative 7. If I put x minus 3 equal to 0, that means x equals 3. Okay? Now, it says check the related graph. Remember, every single day, we're just going to duplicate what we've done the day before. We're going to find more and more ways to do the same thing. So how many answers are there possible to have? You could have 2 or 1 or none. So in this case right here, we have 2 solutions. And if I graphed this, so if you grabbed your calculator and you plugged it into the graphing calculator, you would see it crosses at negative 7, it crosses at 3. So we just have a bunch of backup plans for each other to get to the same spot. Okay? So if I do this one here, it's already equal to 0, 3 terms, nothing in front of the x squared. So it multiplies to 6, adds to negative 12. No, it multiplies to 36, sorry. It would be minus 6 and minus 6. So I have x minus 6, x minus 6 equals 0. Now if I have the same thing twice, do I need to solve it twice? Not really. So x minus 6 equals 0, which means x equals 6. So how many solutions does this one have? It only has one answer because I get the same answer twice. So your graph would just touch the line once. Okay? Same thing here, 3 terms, nothing in front of the x squared. So I get to go what multiplies to 8 and adds to negative 6, which would be minus 4 and minus 2. So that would give me x minus 4, x minus 2 equals 0, which means x equals 4 and x equals 2. Okay, next slide. This is the last slide, so try these on your own. Well, try the bottom 2 on your own, and then I'll remind you of something on the top 2. So let's do the bottom 2 real quick. Nothing in front of the x squared, it's already equal to 0. Nothing in front of the x squared, we'll have to clean that one up a little bit. What multiplies to 9 adds to negative 6, we got minus 3, minus 3. So we got x minus 3, x minus 3. Set them each equal to 0. And I get x equals 3. Get this equal to 0, so I have x squared plus 4x minus 5 equals 0. So what multiplies to negative 5 and adds to 4 would be 5 minus 1. So set this one equal to 0, x is going to equal negative 5. Set this one equal to 0, x is going to equal 1. All right. Up top, 2 things I want you to notice. Number 1, there's something in front of the x squared, which is going to mean what? That's going to mean that we have to go the long way. So hopefully I'll refresh your memory on that. Step number 2, and this is very important, else your homework will get confusing and be really annoying. Move it to whatever side you have to get the x squared positive. It will just make your life easier. Okay? So let's move this to this way. So if I plus the 2x squared over to here, I'm going to have 2x squared plus 20x plus 50 equals 0. Now, how many terms does this have? It has 3. And there's a number in front of the x squared, which means one of two things. Either this is a perfect square, or I got to do the long way. So I should quickly check for perfect square, but is 2 a perfect square? No. 50 a perfect square? No. So this is not a perfect square. So we're going to do what multiplies to, remember, 100 and adds up to 20, which would be 10 and 10. Remember, we're going to put these back in the middle here. So I've got 2x squared plus 10x plus 10x plus 50 equals 0. And then remember, I'm going to do grouping. So I clump, take out the 2x, I have an x plus 5. Take out the 10, I have an x plus 5 equals 0. Pull out the x plus 5, and I have a 2x plus 10 left. Okay, now you have to take the time to solve this because this is not as quick and easy as the last one. The first one is, if I put x plus 5 equal to 0, and I minus 5, I minus 5, x equals negative 5. Okay, but this one here, I better write it out. So 2x plus 10 equals to 0. I minus 10 and I minus 10. I've got 2x equals negative 10. I divide by 2 and divide by 2, and x equals negative 5. So it actually turns out that I still only have one answer. And the reason that happened is because I didn't follow my own advice. We could have taken out a greatest common factor way back here. Remember, what's the first thing we should always look for? We could have taken a 2 out up here, and that would have made the problem easier. Okay? I want to do this problem, but I'm going to pause for a second and give myself some space. Okay, let's keep going. I wanted to give myself some room for that problem. So, gonna put it equal to 0, but I'm always gonna put it so that this is positive. It will make it much easier. So this is gonna go this way. This is gonna go this way. So if I plus this to the other side, I get a plus 9x squared on the other side. I plus this to the other side, I'm gonna have a plus 30x and a plus 25. Now let me follow my own advice this time. Is there a greatest common factor that we can take out of that? And there is not. But there's how many terms? There's 3 terms, right? And first I look to see if there's a number here, and there is. So we have 1 of 2 choices. We can do what multiplies to a huge number and adds to a huge number, but I should probably check what first? Perfect squares. So is this a perfect square? Yes. Is this a perfect square? Yes. What's the test? When I multiply these two together, I get 15. I double them, I get 30. Does it pass? So remember, multiply them together and double them. If it equals 30, we take this sign and we call it a perfect square. You could do it the other way. You could do what multiplies to a huge number, adds to a huge number, plug it back in and group, but you're going to take a lot longer than I am. So now I have this twice. So I have 3x plus 5 equals 0, and I could do it again, but we know we'll get the same answer. So now if I minus the 5, 3x equals negative 5, divide by the 3, and x equals negative 5 thirds. So, do not put this chart away. Keep it out and keep it handy when you're going to go through the worksheet. If you have any questions, shoot me an email and we'll get it figured out. And hopefully you were good at your factoring and you remember this from last chapter. I'll talk to you later.